A no-win war between the US and China is a realistic and chilling scenario, one where neither side achieves a decisive victory, and both suffer enormous costs, along with the rest of the world. Here's how such a conflict could unfold and why it would be unwinnable. Both nations are global superpowers with immense military and economic capabilities. In a prolonged war, they could inflict massive damage on each other but fail to defeat or completely disable the other. This is the essence of a no-win war, destruction without resolution. A conflict would likely start over Taiwan or disputed zones in the South China Sea. The US might intervene to defend Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act or due to commitments to regional allies like Japan and the Philippines. China would view such intervention as an existential threat to its sovereignty. The conflict would rapidly escalate, with missile strikes, cyber attacks, naval clashes, and aerial battles. Even if the war remained conventional, the destruction would be immense. China could cripple US bases in the Pacific using precision missiles. The US could strike Chinese military infrastructure and blockade maritime trade routes. Civilian casualties would mount. Global commerce, especially involving semiconductors, energy, and shipping, would grind to a halt. Countries around the world would face economic collapse, famine, and unrest. Nuclear weapons hang over such a war like a shadow. Neither side wants to use them, but the risk of miscalculation or desperation rises in a drawn-out conflict. Even a limited nuclear exchange would have catastrophic humanitarian and environmental consequences, and likely destroy any hope of a functional global economy. Cyber warfare would deepen the chaos. Banking systems, power grids, satellites, and communications could be sabotaged. Domestic stability in both countries could be threatened. No clear winner would emerge, only paralysis, suffering, and global destabilization. Politically, the war would polarize the world. Some countries would side with the US, others with China, but most would seek to stay neutral or act as mediators. The United Nations would be powerless, and international institutions would fracture. There would be long-term consequences: decades of distrust, arms races, economic isolation, and perhaps the end of globalization as we know it. In the end, a US-China war would be a Pyrrhic disaster, where both sides survive, but far weaker, more isolated, and deeply scarred. There would be no true winner, only devastation. That's why both nations, despite all tensions, are constantly trying to avoid direct war, not out of weakness, but because they understand the cost of a no-win scenario.